over the weekend, we got interesting news, or is it really news? We're trying to figure out whether or not Kim Jong Un, the dictator in North Korea, is still alive, or if he has indeed died. Hashtag Kim Jong Un was trending on Twitter throughout the weekend, as well as Kim Jong, that is his sister, who may be the new leader of North Korea. How are we to make a determination about this? Is this the case? Where do we go from here? What might happen? What are the implications? So many questions to dive into with our guest, Gordon G. Chang, who is the author of the books Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World, and Losing South Korea, rejoining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Gordon, sir, welcome back to the program. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
So let me ask you to just start, please, by giving us a little bit of a heads up as to what's going on as far as what we know, what we actually know versus some of the speculation, and then we'll delve into that realm of things, too.
Yeah, the speculation is that he's dead, in a coma, has coronavirus, or is just messing with us. What we do know is that he was a no-show on April 15th, the Day of the Sun, which is the most important day in the North Korean calendar, because it marks the birth of Kim Il-sung, the regime founder, his granddad. He was and by the way, Kim has never missed an April 15th celebration. Also, we know he was a no-show on Saturday, and that was an event to mark the founding of the Korean People's Army. So these are two important events that he has not appeared at. He has not been in the public eye since April 11th. There's a number of different theories, some of which have circumstantial evidence to support them. But at the present time, we know that something is wrong. We don't know exactly what, but the regime is breaking patterns, and that means there's something terribly amiss.
Now, we have seen reports that he may have had heart surgery and possibly died in the botched heart surgery. The challenge here for people to really know what's actually going on is that North Korea is arguably the single most secretive country on the planet, and they do everything that they can to hide any sort of negative news. So how can we know, or what time frame might it take before we know or able to definitively say this is what happened to him?
Yeah, we'll only know, I suppose, when North Korea actually announces it. And what they announce will have to take with, obviously, a lot of skepticism. Because at this particular time, we don't have independent sources of information. I mean, there's Reuters report, for instance, about a team of Chinese doctors going to North Korea. And that sounds about right. But again, this is all mostly unsourced information. And so we're very much in the dark.
Now, let's say that Kim Jong Un did die in a botched surgery. I mean, obviously this is speculative. A botched heart surgery, and the reports of Chinese doctors going in there didn't seem to help. What does that mean for the political dynamics there in North Korea? I mean, we'll talk in a moment about Kim Yo Jong, his sister, and the possibility that maybe she could take over, but this country is unique on the world stage, I would say, in terms of its internal dynamics.
Well, it certainly is. It's a cult, Kim family cult.
Literally.
Kim Il-sung, the founder, was considered to be God, and Kim Jong-il, his successor, and Kim Jong Un, who we think is the current leader, have sort of lost a little bit of that mystique, but nonetheless, it is extremely secretive. In terms of succession, Kim Yo Jong, the sister, would, I think, have the inside track. But we got to remember there are other Kim family relatives out there who also are in the running. And in this regime, the new ruling group is going to have a Kim there in order to sort of maintain continuity and legitimacy. So it's either Kim Yo Jong, or another possibility is Kim Jong Un's uncle, a son of Kim Il-sung, Kim Pyong-il, who is now back in North Korea. Kim Pyong-il was in the running to succeed Kim Il-sung. He lost out, and apparently people say he has not lost that ambition. So there could very well be two Kims going at it and trying to sort of take over in the absence of Kim Jong Un. And just by the way, Jimmy, I don't think that Kim Jong Un is dead.
Mm.
But as I said, we're just sort of trying to guess.
Well, North Korea, or rather South Korea, has said Kim Jong Un is still alive and well. Alive and well are the words that they put out there. And so that would jive with what you're saying. But what makes you think that he maybe has just been having health issues and isn't actually dead?
Yeah, well, being a no-show on April 15th says something terribly is wrong.
Hmm.
So we start out with that because that's a pattern that was broken, and that's a significant one. Now, Moon Chong-in, who is the security advisor to South Korean President Moon Jae-in, actually used those words that Kim Jong-un is quote unquote alive and well. I can sort of understand the alive portion. That's possible. But the well portion, that's not credible.
Hmm.
South Korea, especially since the news first broke, has been on a determined campaign to convince the world that everything is hunky dory. And when a government actually spends so much effort trying to convince you of something, you got to be very suspicious, especially because Moon Jae-in is very much a supporter of Kim Jong Un, wants to unify North and South Korea. So he has every reason in the world to try to convince us that things are fine.
One thing, and this is from CNN reporting, is that there's this train in Wonsan, North Korea, that supposedly would be what Kim Jong Un might be traveling in or taking, and that was showing up on some satellite video, apparently. Can you tell us what that is and what that might tell us or not tell us?
This is a train that Kim rulers have usually taken. So, for instance, this is the train that Kim took to Hanoi in February of last year to meet President Trump. It was given to the Kim family by Stalin. Kim rulers like to take it because they feel it's a safer form of travel. And so the whereabouts of this train is significant. And as you point out, it's in Wonsan on the eastern coast, which would indicate that Kim Jong Un is there. In Wonsan, there is a big compound for the Kim family, so it's possible that he is resting there. Um, I would have thought that if Kim were in fact dead, that train would have gone to Wonsan, they would have loaded his body, and they would have brought it back to Pyongyang. The fact that the train is still in Wonsan is an indication that Kim is still alive. But, as I said, right now we're just sort of grasping at straws trying to figure out, because what we're doing is really trying to draw inferences from a really small body of information.
Again, we're talking with Gordon Chang, who is author of the books Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World, as well as Losing South Korea. And Gordon, over the weekend, the other thing that I was noticing on Twitter, this was so interesting, was the amount of, I don't know if it was like idolatry or something towards Kim Yo Jong, of course, Kim Jong Un's sister. I think it was, because people are looking at her and saying, "Oh, could be a strong woman that might take control, and she's attractive, and this and that." Buying into deceptive traits and thinking, "Oh, she looks sweet and innocent, so she must be very nice." And if she takes charge in North Korea at the age of 31, 32, thereabouts, that maybe she would bring about nice, peaceful relationship, not just with South Korea, but also with her own people. If she were to
I
become
don't
ruler in North Korea, what do you think?
I don't buy that line of thinking at all. Because,
Definitely
first of all, it almost doesn't matter. We heard basically the same thing when Kim Jong Un took over, by the way.
not. Mm.
The thing that's important is that there's a regime. It has its own logic, it has its own rules. You could take the Pope and you can make him the supreme leader of North Korea, and he would act like Kim Jong Un. So you don't follow that logic, you end up dead. So I don't buy this whole notion that there could be some fundamental change. Anything, of course, is possible, but it's not likely. The other thing that is of concern is that Kim Yo Jong, many people think, and I think there's a reasonable basis to believe this, many people believe that she's got the dictator gene just like her brother. So she's probably going to be as ruthless and as um, murderous as her brother was.
Gordon Chang, when we look at the internal political dynamics in North Korea, I mean, obviously, as you're saying, pointing out, the Kim family dynasty is what has ruled for decades now in North Korea with literally an iron fist. They will kill any political opponents, anybody who even hints at potential opposition. And so the question then becomes, going to your point about Kim Yo Jong, is the internal dynamics of losing any leader. I mean, it does seem like really that all the pressures from people who are in the inner circle of power wouldn't want anything necessarily to change on a fundamental level, because otherwise the unknown would take hold, and they have no idea what a society would be like in North Korea if they were to open up to democracy. So I think it would make sense that whether it's Kim Yo Jong or the uncle or whomever else, that you would continue to see this iron fist rule.
Yes, it's the system. And remember, senior regime members outside the Kim family, look at them for a moment. If there were to be a fundamental change, it's going to be worse for them in all probability than better. I mean, they've got a great life right now, and so they don't want change. If there were going to be change, they could see that they'll be hauled before some international tribunal. They'll end up their days in Guantanamo, maybe even Supermax. It's just that's not a life that they really want to lead. So there is going to be, I think, just a resistance to change. Oh, and by the way, of course, I should mention that the North Korean people probably would tear them limb to limb. So you put that all together, there's a lot of forces for maintaining the status quo.
Gordon Chang, let's talk about the potential implications here on the nuclear aspect of all of this. I mean, obviously, the United States has been deeply concerned for years now about the nuclear power development and the nuclear weapons development programs that North Korea has been working on. President Trump had his 2 summits with Kim Jong Un, has been building up a relationship with him on some level at least. How do you think, let's say that he is dead or is about really sick and still holding on to dear life, and at some point he does die, could that have any impact on the nuclear ambitions and the relationship with President Trump, especially if Trump is reelected? Play that out for us a little bit.
Yeah, President Trump's diplomacy is pretty much out the window because it is, as the president's words clearly indicate, it's based on his personal relationship with Kim Jong Un. And in a stressful situation for a regime on a transition, and remember, this is a crisis of the first order for a one-man regime that goes through succession, which is unplanned. Regime elements, the last thing they're going to do is do anything risky. And by definition, coming to terms, even meeting with the United States is risky. So basically, North Korea goes out of the diplomacy business for years. I mean, it's like never really been in the diplomacy business, but there was that flurry of activity starting in 2018. And so, that's over. Nobody in the regime is going to take a risk in even meeting with President Trump, much less coming to an agreement.
Again, Gordon Chang, our guest. Just a few minutes left with you, Gordon. Appreciate your time as always. When we look at South Korea, I mean, you wrote a little booklet called Losing South Korea, which is certainly delves into some of these internal political dynamics in South Korea and the ideal of reunification that its leaders have right now and have for years, but particularly Moon Jae-in, the current president of South Korea. 2-part question. One, what do you make of the political dynamics right now in South Korea? What can you tell us, particularly vis-a-vis North Korea? But then also, going back to the statement by a senior official of he's alive and well, Kim Jong Un is alive and well. What do you think underscores that particular statement? Why they would say not just he's alive, but and well?
Well, Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president, is very pro-North Korean. Very much wants to support Kim Jong Un, really dislikes the United States. So it's not a surprise that he is saying everything is fine in North Korea. And by the way, that's what the Chinese are saying as well. The Chinese and the South Koreans are saying exactly the same thing. And so that's a real indication. Moon Jae-in is suffering right now. His policy was to unify the two Koreas. He was actually on the verge, I think, of getting very close to doing so. On April 15th, they had the National Assembly elections. His party and his party's allies got more than a two-thirds majority in the National Assembly, which means that they could have proposed a constitutional amendment, which would have a referendum. And that meant that they were actually pretty close to abolishing South Korea. Now, that's going to be completely on hold. The one thing, though, that we do have to be concerned about is that right after that big victory for Moon in the National Assembly elections, they started talking about nationalizing land in South Korea, and all sorts of other changes which would further push South Korea back into an authoritarian state. I mean, it now sort of has a democracy. They certainly had a democracy before Moon took over in May 2017. They sort of have a democracy now, but they won't have a democracy going forward, because I think Moon is going to have, he's going to be able to continue that. But at least he won't be able to abolish South Korea, which would really be
Gordon, what do you mean by that?
For us.
What do you mean by abolish South Korea? Basically say, hey, Kim, here are the keys to the South Korean cars. Take Hyundai, take Samsung, take our people, and we'll suddenly be under your rule. Is that what you mean?
What I mean is a formal unification of North Korea and South Korea into one single state. Right now, you have two states, the Republic of Korea, which is what we call South Korea, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea. Both of them believe that they are the sole legitimate ruler of the Korean nation. Now, Moon Jae-in wants to basically abolish South Korea, so you'd have a single Korean state. In a single Korean state, I think most people think that North Korea would take over because it would subvert society in the South. So this was a real danger until Kim Jong Un's medical problems. And if Kim actually survives this and actually comes out, reasonably healthy, we've got to be worried that we're going to lose South Korea.
Just two more quick questions for you. Gordon Chang, author of Losing South Korea, as well as Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World. What should people be watching for North Korea over the course of the next week or two to kind of suss out where things might be headed? I mean, obviously, is he alive or is he not? But what else?
I think the thing that we'd want to be looking at would be unusual movements of the North Korean military. So far, South Korea is right that there haven't been any, except though Anna Fifield of the Washington Post talks about helicopter movements over Pyongyang, which is a bit worrying. People in Pyongyang, from all accounts, are now panic buying. So that's not a good sign, because it means that people in Pyongyang, who are the most connected with what's going on, do feel there's a problem. So I would be looking for signs like that to tell us where we're going.
Gordon Chang, final question on a different topic. So China, obviously we're looking at coronavirus. Wuhan, China is where this virus began. It looks like may well have been created at the Wuhan Virology Lab, Virology Institute Lab. And, of course, the United States government has been calling out China, also calling out the World Health Organization, saying, hey, you guys provided cover for China. You and I have talked about this here on Jimmy at the Crossroads before. The question that comes to my mind is about the WHO, World Health Organization. The fact that President Trump has said we're not going to fund WHO right now anymore because we don't have confidence in them. And yet I am seeing all sorts of people in entertainment and in the world of politics and in media touting the World Health Organization, raising millions of dollars for the WHO. What do you make of what's going on that side of things while President Trump has been saying, no, we're not going to give you guys money?
I think a lot of people don't understand what the WHO did. They supported Beijing's narrative that this was not human-to-human transmissible when WHO knew that it in fact was. They supported Beijing's position not to impose travel restrictions or quarantines on arrivals from China. They blessed the accuracy of China's statistics on new cases and infections and deaths. All of these things lulled health officials around the world into not taking precautions. And as we heard from Dr. Deborah Bricks, the White House Task Force Coordinator on Coronavirus, and Dr. Fauci, they were lulled by China. So this disease is much worse in the US. It's much worse around the world. This disease would have been largely confined to China were it not for the WHO. And people who raise money for this malign organization, I think, should, let me say something that won't get me into trouble. They just need to reconsider what they're doing, because this organization, although it has health in its name, has been one of the greater forces for the spread of disease around the world.
When the World Health Organization doesn't warn the world about the most significant health issue we've seen globally in a long time, you know there's something wrong. Gordon Chang, again, author of the books Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World, and Losing South Korea, as well as the coming collapse of China. Always great to check in with you, my friend. Thanks for joining us on the show to share your insights.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Always appreciate. Again, Gordon Chang joining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads, and he really is someone who knows what he is talking about on these topics, especially when it comes to North Korea. I always appreciate thoughtful insights that we get from Gordon G. Chang. You just watched a clip from Jimmy at the Crossroads. Don't miss more engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel today. You want to catch our live show, and I love your support.
I got Jimmy at the Crossroads, making sense out of no sense. Yeah.